Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Lisa Allistway, and on this channel, you will find a variety of inspirational and informational videos you can use and apply to your life. My guest today is Jennifer Alpard, who is a physician assistant at MD Anderson in Houston, Texas. Jennifer is also a kidney donor and will be sharing her experience and story with us today. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Yes. So let's just jump right into it. Why did you donate your kidney?
Well, it all goes back about 18 years ago. My son received a liver transplant when he was 1, and he'll be 19 next month. And I've always wanted to pay it forward.
Oh, amazing. Your son is doing good today?
He's doing great.
Fantastic. Okay, so for those of us that are not familiar with the whole donation process, can you walk us through what that looks like?
For kidney donors?
Sure, kidney donors.
Okay. Well, kidney donors, we all have 2 kidneys, so you can share your spare, which is what I did. And it requires lots of workup in the hospital. It starts with a very detailed history, and then you're brought in for blood work and urinalysis. And there are many different things, including blood type, that have to match in order to be a match for the person. So the workup initially was blood work and urine to find out that, in fact, I was 100% match for the person that I chose to donate to. And once I was a match, I went through several full days at the hospital with complete workup, including kidney scans and CAT scans and stress tests, all kinds of things all day. They worked me up and down.
Can I stop you right there? Yeah, awesome. So starting with the match process, because I know that is key. You can't just accept and receive any kidney. And you mentioned that you had to have a matching blood test. Is that correct?
Correct. So initially you have to match blood type. For my son with liver, the only thing you have to match is blood type. With kidneys, there are several other markers that have to match as well.
Okay. So did you know the person that you were going to be donating to? Did you meet them ahead of time, or is it all anonymous, or how does that go initially?
So I did not know her. She came on my radio station that I listen to every day, 94.5 The Buzz, the Rod Ryan Show. And on Fridays, they have what's called Open Phone Friday, and anybody can call in and talk about anything. And I was driving to work, and I heard this girl call in and said, "I'm calling about share your spare." And they said, "What's that?" And she said, "Well, everybody has a spare kidney and I need one. And I'm O positive of blood." And she left the phone number to the transplant coordinator. And before I got to work, I had already talked to the transplant coordinator and set up a meeting with her. And it was completely random that I was 100% match for this person.
Oh, that's amazing. So she was she on kidney dialysis? How old was she? What was her story?
34 years old, a diabetic who had been on dialysis close to a year. And she had to go 3 days a week, 4 hours per day.
Yep.
And it's very hard to find a kidney. Waiting on the list for a deceased donor really takes a long time. And unless a kidney is directed to you, then it's a long, long waiting process.
I bet she was in shock that a stranger out of the blue answered the call.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Well, as soon as I hung up the phone with the transplant coordinator, I stalked her on Facebook, and I went into Messenger and sent her a message. And I said, "I just want you to know I'm getting worked up to be a donor." And we communicated this. The workup was a long time. It was about 3 months. So I let her know that I was being worked up. and we communicated just through text messaging through the Messenger app, but we never saw each other. We never talked to each other. When I found out that I was a match, I didn't want to tell her in case I wasn't approved. There's an entire approval process.
Mhm.
So every once in a while, she would check in. How are you doing? How's the testing going? And I would just tell her it's, it's going well. There's more testing involved. There were several days. And the day that I got the call that said, you've been approved by the board, I then asked each one of my family members individually, I need to know how you feel about this. They knew what I was doing. The only people that knew what I was doing were my mom, my husband, and my 2 kids.
Oh, can I stop you real quick before we jump forward a little bit on the match process?
Yes.
If you're going to donate, you can donate anonymously, or you can donate with, I want that person to get the kidney, right? You can select
Yes.
either or, correct?
That's correct. So if I did not match her,
Yeah.
there is a swap program. So I could say, I want her to get a kidney. And then there's a swap that happens where they would find somebody that matched
Oh.
me and say, this person was donating to their husband, and then she didn't match her husband, but maybe she matched my person, and they would do
Oh.
a swap.
Wow. So what an advantage for her to just be in connection, and that you made that connection because you kind of brought her up the list, I would imagine, right?
Well, all the way to the top, because
Yeah.
she was, if I was going to give a kidney, then she was getting one.
And she was getting one. And so the match process took how long? Months, weeks?
Do you mean for her? Like, how long was she on the list?
For you to go through the matching process, how long did that take you?
So, she went on the air in January asking for it, and it was March when I found out that everything went through. Not only was I a match, but I was approved through the board and was healthy enough to donate a kidney.
Okay. Wow. That's incredible. All right. So you find out you've gone through the matching process. You guys are a match, which is, just
Crazy.
serendipitous. Yeah. It's serendipitous and just wow. So the next step is, obviously your family knew that you were doing this, but you also want the education toward the family and make sure that they're good. Because you have kids, correct?
Yes. My kids are both teenagers. But it was really my mom. She's funny. She's 81 and she's just awesome. But when I first told her, she goes, oh my God, can't you wait till I die? And so I said, I need to know if you support me in this. And she said, if this is something you want to do, I'll support you in it. And my husband said the fact that what Cade went through, and Cade was lucky enough to get a liver, he said 100% I support you. And my kids were like, wow, that's cool. Sure, go for it. So that was all I needed, was for them.
Okay. So let's talk about your son real quick with the liver donation and matching. How did that come about? Because I'm sure that was pretty shocking as a new mom with the 1-year-old, met with this major challenge. And how did that go?
It was a major challenge. When he was born, full term, no complications. He was jaundiced like many kids are. They put him under the Billy lights. He did not get better, and we started the workup. And by 6 weeks of age, he was in the operating room having an open liver biopsy and was diagnosed with biliary atresia, which is a disease where that, first of all, they don't know what causes the disease, but the bile ducts do not form correctly. They're sclerosed, so the bile can't drain out of the liver. Mm-hmm. The only known cure is liver transplant. So he immediately, when he had the biopsy, they proceeded with a surgery called Roux-en-Y. And that's a surgery where they cut out the sclerosed bile ducts, the external bile ducts, and attach the intestine into the liver in hopes that the bile will drain out that way. This procedure either buys you a little time, buys you a lot of time, or doesn't buy you any time, but it's the only cure, the transplant. And it bought Cade about 6 months. And by 6 months of age, he went on the transplant list. And that was a terrible, horrible process.
Nerve-wracking.
He was in the hospital 15 times over the first year of his life. And the last admission was 9 weeks and 1 day. He developed every complication in the book. He invented his own complications. He ended up in the ICU on full life support. He was in respiratory failure. Interestingly, he went into kidney failure. There was actually, he was on a medication that reached a toxic level, and it knocked out his kidneys and his hearing 100%. So he ended up on dialysis himself. And then his hearing was completely, it was 100% sensory neural hearing loss. And he ended up, once he got his transplant and was better, he got a cochlear implant to hear.
Oh,
so
amazing.
When I tell you every complication, it was a very rough year.
So how did he get matched for the liver transplant? And does it have to be from another like baby, like that size liver?
Yeah, that's a great question. It can be either from a baby, or some centers will take from a living donor a lobe of your liver that a living donor can give. My husband matched him, and at Texas Children's Hospital in Houston, they don't do living donor. And so it was very painful. We felt like we were watching our son die, and he was on the list. He got very, very, very sick. And there were 2 livers that came in. One of them went to someone else. They called us and said, "We have a liver for you." We didn't understand at that time that they call more than one person in to make sure that liver gets used. He didn't get that liver. And then he proceeded to get really sick, and was offered another liver. And then they were worried about giving it to him because maybe he had a virus and maybe he would reject. He continued to get worse and worse. And a liver came up. And they called me. We were in the ICU, and they said, "We have a liver for Cade." That particular morning, he woke up in his crib at 4 a.m. They're vomiting blood. There was so much blood. Our nurse, who we're still in touch with today, saved his life and got his blood transfusion immediately. And when I answered the phone, I said, "No, you don't understand. He can't get this liver. He's too sick. If you wouldn't give it to him for possible virus." And they said, "No, we know what's going on, and we've made him a status 1, which kind of releases a lot of the rules, where he goes to the very top of the list, and the area from where you can receive the liver is more broad. It reaches a farther geographical area." And it was a 3-year-old little girl, and it was a horrible day. I mean, we were so sad for that family, yet happy for him. It was, I mean, this is, I think, where it all started, where I needed to pay it forward. I mean, this beautiful family gave the ultimate gift, and they saved his life.
Yes. And did you get to meet the parents? And
we never, ever did. We wrote them a letter immediately, and they wrote us back, and they sent us a picture of her, which I can send you a copy of that picture. And we wrote them, we continue to write them every year. They never, ever have written back, but every year we just thank them. And, everybody handles it differently.
True.
So I don't fault them for that, but we've never met them.
Yeah. So did your son's kidneys, come back to functioning?
Yeah. Yes. Unbelievably, they did. And when I started getting worked up, I said, I called our hepatologist, who reached out to the pediatric renal doctors. And I said, is there any chance that Cade would ever need a kidney? Because I don't want to give one of mine if, God forbid, he would ever need one. And they said, well, he actually is at a slightly higher rate of need than someone else, but my husband could donate no matter what because of the swap program. So, and like I said, we don't have the same blood type, so I would probably be a swap and not match him 100%.
Oh, interesting. But your husband is the same blood type as your son.
Same blood type, but who knows about all of the other. And it was funny because I asked if I could get worked up to see if I would be a match for Cade. And they're like, we can't do all that,
Yeah.
He doesn't need it.
Wow. That's amazing. That's a miraculous story. And I can see how that left an imprint on you and brought you to this place where you're at now. So let's go back to your story of you've gone through the match process. So I guess the next step is to get ready for your surgery. So you tell us a little bit about what that entails and what the surgery was like?
Yeah, well, there's one step that I didn't tell you, and that was after I got clearance from everybody in my family.
Oh, right. Yes.
I texted my recipient and I said, how's your day going? And she said, I'm having a bad day. And I said, can I call you? And I just immediately hit FaceTime. And I said, and we'd never seen each other. And I said, can I make your day better? I said, do you want one of my kidneys? And her hand just flew up to her face and she started bawling her eyes out. And thank you. And then she ended up calling me back. She said, I'm sorry, I didn't give you a proper thank you. I'm like, oh my gosh, you gave me a proper thank you. Yeah. And she said, I would love to meet you before our big date. We set our date for June 16th, this past June 16th, 2021. And so we did meet for lunch. Our moms both joined us. And so I met her before. And then it was time for the workup, and it was more blood, more urine. Not a whole heck of a lot from that I had to do, other than just they kept repeating blood work and urinalysis. Yeah.
So just for the audience sake, and I don't know if you want to share why she needed a kidney, because there's lots of reasons why people go into kidney failure or need a kidney. Can you share that?
She is a diabetic and had
chronic, you said that diabetic. Yes. Okay.
Chronic kidney failure.
Okay. Yeah.
That's why she needed it. Yeah.
So I have a family member.
I think you asked me her age. She's 34.
34. Yeah. Because I have a family member that has polycystic kidney disease, and that's genetic. And obviously, she caught it later on in life, and, stage 4 kidney failure. So she's right at the cusp of having to go on dialysis. And there's lots of reasons why, and some of it's out of our control. Like I said, some is just genetic, you don't ask for it. And
Right.
Yeah. So, okay. So you went through that. So what was the next step?
So then it was pre-op day, and the two of us had our pre-op appointments together. They repeated CAT scans again. So like I said, I was scanned up and down, and more blood. And then the next day it was, of course they did a COVID test. And the next day we both went into the hospital, and it was early morning. I went in first, and they took me in, did their part, took my kidney out, admitted me to the hospital for 2 nights, asked me to get up and walk around immediately. And then they transplanted into her.
So was 2 nights the standard protocol, or was this sped up because of COVID?
No, 2 nights is standard for adjustment. Okay. As long as everything goes well, they like to keep you 2 nights.
Okay. So you had surgery, and so you have a scar right now, like on your abdomen?
I do. So they actually did, it was laparoscopic, and I have a tiny
Hmm.
incision
Okay.
around my belly button. I mean, tiny. I asked the surgeon, how the heck did you get that out of there?
Yeah.
So it was amazing, but it was a major surgery. And that was as an athlete, they were concerned that I would push it and do too much too soon.
Hmm.
And, that was the big deal. Like, you've got this tiny incision, you had a major surgery, and you need to lay low for, they said 4 to 6 weeks, but at
Mm.
4 weeks, I started running again with permission from my surgeon.
Oh, good, good. So
Yeah.
you had your surgery, they took the kidney out. Did they put the kidney in her the same day?
Immediately. Yes.
Immediately. Okay.
Yes.
So she was all set to go in the next room. They put it in,
Right. Right.
and she stayed in the hospital how long?
She stayed in about 10 days.
Okay. So much longer, because they need to watch and make sure that everything is,
Right.
accepting it and so on.
Right.
Awesome. Okay. So you go home and you go through the recovery process of 4 to 6 weeks. What's her recovery process as a kidney receiver?
Very similar, although she didn't do as well.
Oh no.
She didn't accept the kidney, and she was very close in touch with me, once we made the date, calling me every day, talking to me. We saw each other several times, and then she kind of shut down when she shared with me that she felt guilty that she took my kidney and then it wasn't working for her.
Okay, back up. So
I know.
there's a possibility, and I was going to ask you about that. What is the percentage likelihood that a rejection would happen? What did the doctors tell you before going in with that?
So they don't really tell me. It's completely two separate teams, or one team doesn't talk to the other team, because I've got the opportunity at any time to back out. So I'm really not, the two teams don't communicate on that level. They don't tell me about the recipient. Of course, I knew about her because we met each other.
Yeah. But I mean, just like in the research, what's the likelihood that a person would reject?
So I joined a support group called Kidney Donor Athletes.
Nice.
And they've been a lifesaver. They answered 100,000 questions for me, and I, talked through it with them. Most people that are a match like that do very well and literally walk out of the hospital. They're off dialysis and they're done and everything's great. And that's kind of what I thought would happen.
Yeah.
What ended up happening is one of the anti-rejection drugs that she was given, there was an adverse reaction, and she developed a syndrome where the kidney clotted off, but with a special infusion, it was supposed to have a very high chance of working again. So we kept hope that it would. Like I said, some of the people on my kidney donor athlete group told me that some of their recipients maybe took 6 months before it started working. I have not given up hope. I feel like if any kidney is going to work, this kidney is going to work. I'm staying hopeful. She, I think, is not as hopeful and has gotten quiet and is not communicating with me as much anymore. I know that she is back on dialysis.
Oh man.
But I told her, I said, please don't feel guilty. I do not regret giving it to her 1 second. I don't regret it.
Mm-hmm. These are things,
everything I could.
Yeah, these are things out of your hands, out of her hands. I mean, even the doctors, all in good faith, did what they could, but nothing is perfect in medicine, obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm a little bit walking on eggshells with her. I'll reach out to her and just see how she's doing. But I kind of want to give her space and let her reach out to me, although I'll just
Yeah.
last Friday. Hi, happy Friday. Hope you're having a great day. Just something
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah. Well, I hope she sees this video. I know
Yeah.
she's going through a lot, and this is all
Yeah.
fresh and recent and new. I mean, this happened this
Yes.
year, and it's just a lot for any one person to deal with. But I mean, you
Right.
guys are both like inspiring and both troopers, throughout this. And that's what, at the end of the day, that's what really, matters in life.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about so you're living with one kidney, okay?
Yes. Yes.
So let's talk about kind of what education did they tell you need to do or know living with one kidney?
So they told me that I needed to really stay hydrated. And honestly, that is super easy for me. I've always got my Yeti full of water. I always have. So that hasn't been a problem. They told me I needed to watch my protein intake and my sodium intake. So I kind of threw a fit when I found out what they wanted me to do protein wise, because as an athlete, I consume a lot of protein. So I wasn't told ahead of time. I had two different dietitians ahead of time. The dietitian I met with said, don't add protein, don't take protein shakes and protein bars, but go about your life eating chicken and fish and peanut butter and beans and nuts and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I said, and I live on a street.
No worries, it's Houston. There's always background noise.
Exactly. And I was like, great, that's fine. I don't really do protein shakes. And then in the hospital, a different dietitian came through and was like, you can only have, I forgot what number, it was some ridiculous, like a small chicken breast worth of protein a day. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, that's not going to happen. So I met with the surgeon and he said, this dietitian is talking to someone who is maybe not as active and athletic. And he said, it is okay for you to eat protein. Your creatinine level your baseline is going to be a little bit higher. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that you're in kidney failure. So my diet is pretty much the same. I eat a very clean, healthy diet. But quinoa is protein, right? And so I'm eating protein. I don't do a lot of salt anyway.
Right.
But it's funny, in the very beginning when I would eat sushi, I would measure out my soy sauce or my ponzu and make sure I wasn't getting too much sodium.
Yeah.
Now I'm really not, because my numbers have all been 100% normal. My creatinine is a little elevated, but I think it's new baseline.
Sticking with the diet, I just have a couple more questions. Do you have to watch your potassium?
I was not actually told that I needed to watch that specifically. They check labs and that is included, and that has remained in the normal range.
Okay.
But I think all electrolytes are going to be important, and especially with as much as I sweat, running and biking and everything, that's very important to stay hydrated and my electrolytes to stay in check. On that kidney donor athlete page, I've seen people, we've all gone back to endurance sports, Ironman, marathons. Some people are doing 100-mile runs. And,
wow.
this is something that we all do. And one of the people, occasionally you'll get someone say, I thought I was hydrating well. I thought I was taking my electrolytes well, but I ended up, having a problem. And so it's just really having an awareness, body awareness, and knowing our nutrition. But sometimes, even as a 2 kidney person, sometimes you just can't help it, and it just happens.
Yes. Yes. So another thing you have to stay on top of is your levels and your numbers. So how often do you visit with I guess you're under the care of a kidney doctor or a nephrologist.
Right.
So how often what do you get checked, and how often do you get checked?
So right after surgery, I had labs like 1 week later and then 1 month later. And now I haven't even had them again. I think it's 3 months, which will be scheduled for December.
Okay.
And then a couple more times, and then they kind of kick me out the door and tell me to follow up with my primary care physician once a year.
Okay. So your labs include like a urinalysis. Do you have to have a CAT scan on your kidneys
No.
or anything like that? No.
No, it's all blood work and
Blood
urine.
work, blood and
Yes.
urine. Okay. So
The main kidney blood is BUN, creatinine, and GFR. That's what they're looking at, but they're checking all kinds of things, you know, like electrolytes and all of that also.
okay. So that's definitely you have to keep in mind. Do they tell you to, you know, lower your risk for injury, knowing that you only have one kidney? I guess no contact sports. They don't recommend that.
So that was a big question for me. I'm a avid snow skier, and that would have been a deal breaker if they told me you can't snow ski. I would have not done it. But they said really anything but kickboxing is fine.
Yeah.
So, you know, I probably won't play tackle football either.
Right, right.
That's
So
okay.
no contact sports because I mean you don't want to risk that chance of injuring it.
Right.
What else as far as like education that you have to let your family know with regards to just living with one kidney? Anything with that?
Not really. I mean, here I am. I donated June 16th. We are at October 28th. I feel literally 110%. I do not feel like I
Any
ever
difference?
had surgery.
Amazing.
It truly is amazing. It took me several weeks to get back up to be able to run and not feel like my heart rate. That is another thing. I have to watch blood pressure. Because that can be elevated with one kidney. But so far, everything has been just really smooth.
So you can engage in vigorous exercise?
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
And that is something that people don't know. I had several friends that were worried about me doing this. And one of my friends said, well, I considered doing it, but they told me I could never run a marathon again. And I was like, oh, no, that's not true. We've got a whole group of over 100 people that are doing vigorous sports.
Yes. So when you donate a kidney, you automatically are put on. So if this one fails, the one that you have, you already are on the list to receive one because you've given one. Is that correct?
That's correct. I would go to the top of the list.
And it would just be from a stranger, from whomever, or if your family member wanted to do it, if they're a match.
Yes.
Then they would go on the list, right? Anytime somebody donates, they get put high on the list.
Yes.
Yes, very cool.
Now, so if I did not know her, which, you know, I say I donated to a stranger.
Yeah.
She was a stranger, but there are people that I've met through my group that literally said, hey, I want to donate a kidney. They have no idea where it's going. They have no idea who it's going to. That's a different story altogether. That person literally gets vouchers where they can, I don't know what it is, 3 or 5 vouchers where, say in 20 years, my son needs a kidney. I have a voucher and he goes to the top of the list. I don't get that because I did end up donating it directly to a person.
Interesting. Okay. Very cool. So let's talk about your kidney donor athletes group. Who are they? What do they do? And tell me a little bit about that.
Well, that was just lucky to get hooked up with that. One of my girlfriends that I shared with what I was doing said, oh my gosh, I've got to hook you up with this girl. She's got a group called Kidney Donor Athletes. And this was while I was getting worked up, I joined the group and they were just an amazing support. They're athletes of all kinds. It might be a rock climber. It might be an Ironman. Maybe somebody who cycles or whatever, tennis player, whatever it is. And these are all athletes and everyone has donated or is getting worked up to donate. So it's a very good place to go for questions, for support. You know, when, I mean, there were so many questions right before my donation. I just started feeling in a funk.
Mhm.
I wasn't scared and I wasn't going to back out, but I couldn't figure out my feelings.
Well, you
And I
didn't know
went on.
anybody, right? You didn't know anybody
I
that
did
had done it.
I actually knew a couple of people.
Oh, okay.
So, and I reached out to them as well. There was a guy on my triathlon team who I think it has been 3 years ago. He needed a kidney, and I told him that I would get worked up. And I started with the transplant coordinator, went through the whole interview, never went in for blood work, and found out that his wife was 100% match.
Oh,
So
okay.
I was done with that. So, and I knew his wife because she trained with us also.
Okay.
So I reached out to her. How are you? Are you able to go back to everything? What was it like? And then I had one other person that donated to her son.
Mm-hmm.
So I had two people that I knew personally, but just to have this broad, you post a question and you get 35 answers, and you know, and they may vary.
So this is a
helpful.
Facebook group that you found, just Googling, put a question
No,
out?
My girlfriend had met the person who started the group.
Okay.
At a triathlon, and for whatever reason collected her information.
Wow.
And she shared it with me, and I immediately got on. And it was funny, the day that I logged on, and there's a website also.
I'll link it in the description box down below when people can have access to it.
I logged on to get information about it. They were taking applications for to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. So there was a group of kidney donor athletes, and so I applied, and I was like, they were like, donation date. I'm like, well, not yet. But they didn't pick me. Maybe I needed to have actually gone through with it. But
maybe next year.
Oh man, that would have been awesome.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So is this this is a international group that's online?
Yes, it is. And it's grown so much just from when I joined back in March.
Wow. It sounds like such an interesting group because it's a very health-minded group because they're already coming from an athletic place. And so I think it's wonderful that you can find that support with all the questions that you have kind of going through the process.
It's really neat. It's like an instant family. I had some people reach out separately and, you know, give me their phone number, and I spoke on the phone with them and had questions answered, and people you feel like you really connect with. And just scrolling through the page, you see some of them have hooked up to meet and done races together. And it's such a neat thing. You just feel this instant bond with these people.
Fantastic.
They've all gone through the same thing that you have.
Yeah. Fantastic. So one other question I had about kidney donation is the ages. Do they put like a ranking system as far as people receiving them, like people who are younger, or, you know, somebody at 40 that has kids is going to get preferential over somebody who's 80, kind of at their later end of life? Is that something in place that you know of?
So I don't know the details on it, but based on what I know, you know, because I lived through the recipient side of it with my son being a liver recipient. So the answer is yes. I mean, they're not going to put you high on the list if, you know, if you're sick or you have comorbidities that maybe, you know, and I don't know how old they go, at what point it becomes more difficult. What I do know is that when someone directs a kidney to you, then it's yours. It doesn't matter how old you are. You know, you have to be well enough to be able to get through the surgery and receive it.
Yeah. And I know, like, for people, let's say, you know, they may die in a car accident and they have, like, you know, donation on their card. And so you have to get those organs right away. You know, they can't just sit around. And so geographically, it becomes an issue. So if you have all the money, you can fly across country and get there and get in time. But if you don't, I mean, you're kind of SOL, like, on some of these.
No, it doesn't work that way. You, as the recipient, you're in your hospital, and they will, the surgeons who are retrieving the organs
Mhm.
will fly to the organs. So my son, when he became a status 1, it meant that his geographical location expanded, beyond Texas. So
Okay.
we don't know where they flew that day. We do know that they got on a plane and flew somewhere to harvest the liver to bring back to
Mhm.
Houston.
Okay.
They don't tell us. We don't know where they went. But the
Uh-huh.
recipient, it doesn't matter. The recipient, no amount of money is going to help you here.
Okay.
You don't,
Yeah.
you're
Okay.
not buying your organ.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Hell no.
So let's just kind of conclude. We're here at the end. Do you have anything else that's pertinent to this topic that you would like to share with, organ donation or receiving
Well,
or giving?
I mean, what I would like to say that I probably should have mentioned earlier is when my son was in the hospital and we had no control and needed to have control over something, we started a foundation specifically for pediatric liver disease and supporting the research. Like I said, his disease was the only cure is transplant. So we started our foundation, and not only is it to support the research, but also organ donor awareness has always been a really big part of our foundation. In 2008, we became an official Houston Marathon charity. So since 2008, I have run either the half or the full marathon in Houston every single year. And that's our main fundraising. So it's neat that I can now tie in the awareness of kidney donation with the Kadar Alpard Foundation for Pediatric Liver Disease.
Oh, fantastic. Do you have a website? I'll make sure I link that down below as well.
I do. It's
You can give it to me after.
org or .com or something. I'll send that to you.
Okay. And I'll definitely link that. Fantastic. Well, I do appreciate you sharing your story. I know that, if this just helps one person, our job is done, just to inspire and at the very least inform, because a lot of times people don't know and don't have all the information and are maybe just, scared to even maybe give up one kidney and what's it like to live with one kidney. But you're a walking example, a warrior that has done it and has shown that you can still continue a healthy life afterwards.
Well, and there is one more message that I want to put out there, and that is, to be a living donor is one thing, and it is a big deal. But please be a donor in your death. Put it on your driver's license. Let your family know, because you can save so many lives. And at least give blood. That is life-saving and so needed. I just gave blood for my first time since donating a kidney, and it is in such high demand right now. So go give blood. Do that.
Yes. Fantastic. Well, thank you, Jennifer. I sure do appreciate you coming on today and sharing your story. It was excellent. And
thank you.
Yes. And if you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to be alerted to when the next video drops. Thanks for watching.